Video Games Live 游戏音乐会在中国的演出已经进入了第9个年头。在最近几年的暴雪游戏音乐会上，站在指挥台上为我们指挥的就是大家非常熟悉的，他曾经在暴雪工作超过10余年，并且几乎参与了所有暴雪游戏的音乐的谱写和改编工作。那么他就是坐在我身边的 The legendary Russell Brower. Okay, Mr. Russell Brower, thank you to having you in this conversation. That since we have do so much video games live in China, but a lot of people already know you from your game, from your conduct, from the video games live, but also a lot of people want to know more about you. So can we start from your childhood? That did you how you learn your music from the very beginning? Did your parents made you do that, or you just get into the music you love?
My parents didn't make me do it, but my father especially loved music. He had a natural talent. He had no training, but he had a perfect pitch ear. He could hear any pitch. He could hear a song once and then play it on any number of instruments. It was rather irritating because I did not possess the same abilities as he did. But he was an audio enthusiast, an audiophile we call them, and he collected, thankfully, mostly film scores and classical music. I think my entire childhood, he was constantly playing these wonderful record albums of music he loved, again, from the movies and from classical music, things like that. And I didn't even know what it all was, but he had our whole house wired for sound. And so every night as I went to sleep, a speaker behind the head of my bed was playing this music, and I think it very much imprinted on me. And it made me love music that tells a story.
Okay.
Music that paints a vivid picture in your mind. And I owe that to my father, just exposing me to it my whole young life.
Great. People would know you that you have working in Blizzard for like decades, but can you tell?
Well, 12 years.
12 years. That's more than a decade. Okay. So people want to know that before you joined the Blizzard, how you started your music career?
I have been doing music almost since the beginning. My very first job was doing drawing and storyboard artwork, things like that, at a division of the Disney company that works on the theme parks like Disneyland and Walt Disney World and Shanghai Disneyland. And while I started there as an artist, because I would say I got much more encouragement from my parents to be an artist in the graphic style rather than music, because I think they felt music would be too tough. They didn't discourage me, but they kept kind of urging me to go with
the music,
art. But within a year of being at Disney, I got the opportunity to create some very basic music and sound effects for some things that were probably 2 or 3 years before they would be completed. And so it was proof of concept kind of work. I was very fortunate that Disney was amenable to that they were willing to let me do that. I remember the day that I stopped doing what everyone expected me to do, which was art, and turned to what I was doing every day, every night. As soon as I got home from work, I would stay up all night making music. As soon as I turned that corner and started doing what I really loved, it was a huge epiphany for me, because I realized that what they always tell you is true. You should follow your passion, and it's best to work in something you really love, because you're going to work a lot, hopefully, in your lifetime. So after 1 year of employment, I switched to music and sound, and I've never looked back. Fortunately, I was only 19 years old then, and not 35 years old.
So after the Disney career, you just directly go to the Blizzard, or is someone from the Blizzard came to you, say, hey, do you want to work for us, or something like that?
Games were many years later. Although I did at Disney work on some interactive games using computers that were the size of refrigerators, and we were doing virtual reality way before its time. So I got very interested in interactivity in games back then. Of course, I love to play games as well.
Yes, of course.
I had an Atari 2600 and all of the usual things. But I went from Disney. After about 3 years there, I went into television And I worked in television doing, at first, mostly sound effects, but then got an opportunity later in my career when I was working for Warner Brothers on the animated series Animaniacs.
Oh.
I had the opportunity to create some music for a couple of the episodes. And I was very grateful for that. And I also went back as a freelancer to work for Disney and started doing more music. Pretty soon I was working as a freelancer, and I did that for 13 years in television and occasionally for Disney and things like that. Then I went back to Disney for probably about 6 years, again working on the theme parks. And when that project was completed, I was looking for something new to do. It was about that time that the game Myst came out from Cyan. It was one of the first CD-ROM games.
That's a very great game, yeah.
It made me inspired. It made me want to work in games. So I did work for a couple of different smaller companies over the years. I'd say after about 2.5, 3 years, I wanted to work on games that were a little more my style. I had been working on, I would call them military simulations. Having had this background at Disney and things like that, I like telling stories. And so I had been familiar with Blizzard. I'd played their games, and they definitely made an impression on me as being really great games with great depth of story and some wonderful music. It was really through some word of mouth that I heard there was an opening, and the same people that let me know there was an opening sort of put my name into the hat, as it were.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate that they hired me, and that was in 2005.
That's 2005. So what's the first major piece or first major project that you composed for the Blizzard game? Is that World of Warcraft or something?
It was the Burning Crusade expansion of World of Warcraft.
Wow.
I was head of sound, and therefore the musical director as well. But there was already a fine staff of composers there. So I just wanted to kind of slip in and become part of it and not change everything, but just sort of add my voice to this already great chorus of voices there, musical voices. So with the Burning Crusade, 2 new playable races were introduced. And so writing the music for the Blood Elves was my first real major contribution to the game. And anyway, 12 years later, I did the math, and there was over 80 hours of music in World of Warcraft at the time that I left.
That's only for World of Warcraft for 80 hours.
Something like that. I think it was 82 hours about when I left.
Oh my God.
There's more now. And I had personally written more than a third, little less than half of that in 12 years. So it was a lot of stuff. Plus Diablo 3, StarCraft 2. I was in a supervisory role on Overwatch and Hearthstone and helped choose the composers. But it's always a team effort at a company like that, and we really accomplished some fun stuff, and I'm proud to have been part of that musical legacy.
Yeah, it's a great and a huge job for the Blizzard game. But people were curious about when you compose the music for the Blizzard games, what's the process? Is that they give you a game to play, then make you the feeling of the game, then you compose the music, or they just give you a piece of, just like the concept or something that make you do the music before the game? What's the process?
One of the nice things about working on staff at a company like that, we are there when the game or the expansion of a game is in its early days of inception. We get to see the artwork very early, and we get to interact with the designers. My favorite thing was to attend art meetings. Every week the entire art team would get together and sort of show each other in a show and tell format what they had accomplished over the last week. And I would just sit there without saying anything and just take it all in. And in those meetings, I would come to discover all the different things that were coming up in the coming months. I'd find out very early what the next playable races would be and what different zones would be created. And that would start my brain to working. And either I would assign a zone or a race or something, some concept, some subset of the game to one of the composers, or to myself. There's usually 5 or 6, at least, that number of composers on any given World of Warcraft expansion. Being exposed to the game that early on, it allows your subconscious to just kind of chew on it. And I don't know if you've ever gotten like a great idea maybe in the shower or driving or riding on
some kind
an
of
airplane
idea
or
jumps out or something.
Yeah, you might be busy doing something else, but your subconscious is working.
Yeah.
That's what would happen. I think the longer time I had to think about something, at least in the case of my own writing, the longer I had to mull it over, the faster and easier it would come out at the end. And everyone has their own way of working, but that was mine.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit about your idea that how do you think the relationship between the games and the music? You just said the music will help the game to tell a story. Is there anything more about that?
Yeah, it amplifies the mood, it'll help make certain story points. And music can say a lot without words. The localization process of all these games is a tremendous effort and is done really well. But it's really awesome that some of the mood is, you not have to rely on words, you don't have to rely on the translation across the entire world. People react to music pretty much the same way, I've found, no matter where they're from and what background they have. And so it's a very powerful and yet subtle way to bring added gravitas or impact to the game.
Yes.
And as you said, help tell a story.
Okay. So in the expansion Mist of Pandaria, that a lot of Chinese audience are very care about, or they have listened to the music and they found that you have installed a lot of Chinese instruments into the music, just like erhu, dizi. Did you mean to do that, or you want to tell some kind of special meaning by that kind of Chinese instrument?
I asked one of the lead designers of the game early on, what role do you feel the music has in Mists of Pandaria? Because it's pretty unique amongst all the expansions. And without hesitation, he said that the artists and the game designers had done a really wonderful job of borrowing, gaining influence from certain Asian, especially Chinese architecture and icons and certain legends and tales and things like that that would be woven into the stories and certainly into the look. But he said, I really want the players to remember they're still in Azeroth. And he felt that music could really pull that off. Music would be able to do something that the artwork might struggle with sometimes, and that is to embrace this Asian culture and yet let us know we're still in Azeroth. So what we did was we basically combined a Western film score kind of style of music along with this overlay of traditional and, in each case, very ancient Chinese instruments. We did research to make sure we were writing for them correctly, or at least we learned the rules before we broke them. And we hired players that I think in all but one player was from China and had a heritage here and a lifelong working knowledge and love for their instrument. The erhu and especially and the gucheng. As soon as we heard these married together, the Western style and the Eastern Chinese overlay, it was magical to our ears, and we knew we had it. And there were certain things about the Western style that kept us kind of rooted in Azeroth, but the artwork and the storylines and everything were also emphasized by the Chinese instruments and the music.
Okay. All right. So I know this is maybe the most question you don't want to talk about, but we have to ask that after you working for Blizzard like 12 years, why you finally choose to leave Blizzard? Because when I remember on that day when we read your last letter on your Facebook, a lot of people were shocked they cannot believe that, because they think the music is a kind of a soul of the game, and you are the soul maker. You are making that the spirit of the Blizzard game, but you just like, for them, it's suddenly left.
Right.
What happened?
Well, I don't wish to go into really any detail, but I will say though that it was not my choice, and I was very troubled that it happened and disappointed that it happened. But you know, times change, as I think that's a quote from Legion, actually, isn't it? And this has turned into an opportunity that I can use to work on, well, other projects, and also devote time I just didn't have before onto my own work, because I realized after over 35 years of making music professionally, every note has been for someone else. Every note has been, and happily so, part of a big team effort.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I realize now I have the chance to make some musical statements and expressions that kind of been bottled up inside me, and it just, there either wasn't the time or it wasn't appropriate to do before. So I'm really happy to let you know that I have an album of original music, all by me, in the works.
That's great.
Please, I hope you'll watch this space and stay in touch, because
Sure, I will.
I really look forward to letting everyone know when it is out. And I do believe that the fans who enjoy the Blizzard music, which actually overlaps pretty heavily with the fans that enjoy the music I did at Disney, there'll be something in this album for all those people.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So let's look back to your 35 years of music career. Can you tell us what's your most favorite piece you have made for Blizzard or even Disney?
Well, it's related to your earlier question. I do believe that for Blizzard, it was definitely Grizzly Hills. But I really am proud of Invincible, which is actually a co-production with 3 other composers. But I'm the one who decided, hey, maybe we have an opportunity here to take this old idea and this new idea and put them together and make the song Invincible, and Lament of the Highborn and all of that. And with Disney, it was the Living Seas Pavilion. One thing that's going to come out very soon, which I can mention, is, earlier I spoke of how the game Myst had inspired me to get into games in the first place. Well, as it turns out, the Cyan Company is celebrating the 25th anniversary of Myst. In fact, that day was just a couple of days ago. And in order to celebrate the 25th anniversary, they have created a special box set that looks like one of the Myst linking books, and it was a Kickstarter project. Luckily, through some friends of friends, I connected with them, and I have created a 20-minute mini album of music that is inspired by Myst. So there are 5 pieces for each of the main 5 installments of the Myst game.
It's not from the Myst, but it's inspired by the Myst.
Inspired by it. It includes some of the melodies written by Robin Miller and Tim Larkin and others, but it's kind of my own spin, and it's just kind of a love letter, if you will, from me to that company for inspiring me. And anyway, they blessed it, and they have used this little 20-minute album as part of the Kickstarter rewards, but they're going to make it streamable by everyone.
That's great.
So I'm excited, and it hasn't come out yet, but it's imminent. I'd say any day now. That'll be 20 minutes of music that no one's heard from me before, and if you're a fan of the Myst series, this will be very special.
Yes. So let's look back to your 12 years Blizzard career, and also in the Warner Brothers, Disney, whatever. So for this decades of a career, can you tell me what's the most thing that you have got from your music career for the past decades?
Well, if you mean like moments that were special to me and meant a lot to me, I've been fortunate. There's been something, I think, in each career. So I'll just say I'll give you 2. The first one was when I was working for Disney and I had written one of my first long-form pieces of music. It was for a big exhibit and pavilion at Epcot Center in Florida, Walt Disney World, called the Living Seas Pavilion. It holds what at the time was the largest saltwater tank in the world, so big that you are walking through a little tunnel that's all glassed in, and you can be surrounded on all sides.
Okay.
And I was standing there, and my music was playing, and it was the first time I had heard my music in a public space like that. And I was really feeling elated by this. And just at that point, there was a young couple standing up next to the glass looking, and the woman said to her friend, "Do you suppose the dolphins can hear the music? Because it seems like they're dancing to the music." And I just was like, oh my gosh, check please, I'm happy, you know. And I remember someone suggesting, maybe you should tell them. I go, no, they'll think I'm a lunatic. No, I'm not going to tell them that I'm standing right behind them. I just want to enjoy the moment. The next thing would be, certainly there were countless times during my Blizzard that were very special. Definitely among them was finding out that some of the pieces of music had meaning for people outside of the game. And it becomes the soundtrack to their life. People were playing Lament of the Highborn at very solemn events. Like there were some players who, maybe someone had passed away, far too young, obviously, and when everyone was sharing their memories of this person, they were playing Lament of the Highborn in the background because that's what this person would have wanted. A young woman once told me that she had been very depressed and she kind of wanted to leave this world. Wow. And a piece that I wrote called Totems of the Grizzlemaw, which was more affectionately known as Grizzly Hills. That piece of music put her into a different place. She just kind of meditated, closed her eyes, and let this music wash over her. And instead of putting her at peace so that she could leave this world the way she had planned, she decided she wanted to stay. And she wanted to keep hearing the music, and she wanted to hear more music like that. And she realized how many friends she had made in the game. So it says a lot about not only the music, but the entire game. In this case, World of Warcraft, and how it became really important in people's lives. Families were using it to communicate over long distances. It just was a very special time. To this day, people will come up and they ask me, did I write Grizzly Hills? And when I say yes, their reaction is very special to me. It means a lot because, we sit at our piano or whatever and write in a little dark room, and we hope someone's listening. When you get to find out like that, it's really special.
Someone get it and someone be grateful for that.
Absolutely.
And you will be very happy to hear that, right? Yes. So, let's talk about the Video Games Live. You have been in China with us for the Video Games Live tour for like 6 years, right?
But something like that,
we know that you are a composer, but you are not a conductor. And they said you train your conductor, especially for the show, for the Video Games Live in China. How did you do that? What's the difference, from the compose to conduct, especially conduct your own composed music?
Well, it's certainly a privilege and a huge thrill. And I always tell the orchestras before the first rehearsal that while I'm a professional composer, I'm not a professional conductor. And so I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, and I want to apologize in advance. And I think it sets the stage for a really great relationship, because they know that I'm not coming in and going to blame all my mistakes on them and things like that. We're just here to make some music together and have a good time and hopefully put on a really nice show. What conducting has meant for me is, even in the limited capacity that I do the work, I feel like it's allowed me to contribute now to every part of the process. I've always been composing. I love recording. I love mixing and all the technical aspects of creating music and doing the production. But I was always a lousy piano player and not a great singer. even though I did sing in choirs in high school. And in fact, that's where most of my musical training came from, was simply being in a choir.
Yeah.
But conducting is something that I'm just, maybe I have a knack at least to get past some of the basics that will often hold people back. Again, with the help of some really experienced musicians who can see through all the mistakes I make and see past them, we can work together, and I can bring something to the table about just dynamics and expression, and because I do know the pieces well. I think it makes for a good show too, because we're all just clearly having a good time up here, and the passion is there. And no matter how horrible a day I'm having, once I get up on the podium and the lights go down, I get into this zone which I didn't really understand. I don't think you can understand until you find yourself in it. And it's a great place to be. You're at one with the music. You are connected to all these players and the audience as well. Yeah. In fact, I can't stand rehearsing, but I love the show. I make far less errors in the show because it's just, everything is clicking. Yeah. Whereas the rehearsal, I feel like everyone's judging me and I'm nervous and usually it's too hot and like that. So I'm so happy that this became a part of my life a few years ago, because I used to just come and wave and say hi and then leave. Yeah.
So that's exactly the next question I'm gonna ask you is that, as you said, when you compose a music, when you write a music, you may be like you alone in a dark room, you just play the piano, or even you are recording a music, you just to conduct a orchestra. But for this kind of video games live show, that you can see a lot of audience down there, and they react with your music.
You can feel them out there.
You can feel them, right? And when they say that for the Horde, for the Alliance, or even they cheer out for the Hearthstones, is that kind of feeling that you never experienced before, right?
Correct.
Is kind of enjoy you, and you enjoy that moment.
Absolutely.
Right?
I mean, growing up, I wanted to be in a band, and I wanted to tour and be a rock star as much as anyone who is into music would have some version of that story. But I guess I figured that I just never took that path, and my path was going to be purely writing and producing and recording and then eventually musical direction. So it's been such a happy thing the last 5 or 6 years for me to do this, because it really, I get a lot out of it, and I have this opportunity to contribute back into it. So I just didn't see it coming, and now that it's here, it's really amazing. And even in a place like China, where there's a language barrier, it doesn't matter so much when you're talking about music, or certainly once you're performing. I know which parts of the scores that I'll probably hear a reaction from the audience, and it never gets old to feel them get excited, because usually there's something big happening, or maybe when they realize what the next song is going to be and it's one of their favorites. I just love to hear them get excited about it. And
of course.
And how can you not do a good job up there with all that support?
So we know that now you are like a free man because you have left Blizzard. And we know that you love Blizzard. You love Blizzard games, and you are very enjoyed to compose music for them. But that's my idea. That would be a kind of limit to your talent, that maybe now you can compose the music whatever you want to compose. So can you share any future plans for us?
I put my all into every job I've had, and there was a time when I felt I'd work for Disney for the rest of my life, and I certainly would have been happy to work for Blizzard for the rest of my life. But when life changes and things move on, absolutely one of the biggest benefits is that I can now work on other games besides Blizzard. I can work on things that I can't even talk about right now because none of it's come out yet.
But we are so looking forward for it.
But there are some things coming up. I've done actually 2 Chinese games late last year.
Great.
I have had meetings with some other companies on this trip. So with any luck, hopefully I'll have some more Chinese games to talk about in the future.
So for myself, that I'm so honored to be with you for many years during the Video Games Live tour. Even I am not a music man, but I can tell that when you on this stage, that when people are exciting about your music, I'm really happy to see you enjoy that. So I was so looking forward for your new piece that coming forward, especially for the Chinese games. And also I hope you can make another great success for your future. So thank you very much for this conversation. It's so great to talk with you, to share with your story for us, to hear your growing up, for your passion about your career. That's very fantastic.
Ni hao, China. I am so grateful to be here. As Charles mentioned, this is my 5th or 6th year being part of these tours. And once again, it's really a privilege. It's a lot of fun. And I want to thank you for all the times you've come out to these shows. And again, thank you so much for playing the games, keeping the music turned on, and then bringing yourself and your friends and your family to these concerts so that we can all celebrate the music and the games we love together. So thank you so much.